Hello, and welcome to another episode of Adventures in Messaging. I am Emma Stratton, and today I am joined by Jason Perocho, VP of Product Marketing at Braze. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Emma, how you doing?
I'm doing well. It is so good to have you on the show today. I'm super excited to talk to you because you have so much experience about messaging, positioning, product launches. I hear you've done 30 product launches in your day.
Yep, I even can't believe I did that much in 6 years.
Oh my gosh, 6 years. Wow, that is like seriously impressive. So, we were chatting earlier about messaging in general, and you have some strong beliefs about how messaging should be, which I love. And you shared that you have some rules to live by when it comes to creating great messaging that you've kind of figured out over the years. Tell me a bit about that. What are your rules to live by when it comes to messaging?
Yep, and I would say after 30 product launches, positioning and messaging is my baby, like my specialties. I will admit right now, I still don't believe I'm good, but these rules have really helped me drive my career and be successful at positioning and messaging.
Nice.
So those rules are really around messaging has to be clear, concise, benefit driven, sequential, and solve a specific problem. So it has to be more how to. Bonus points if there's alliteration around it.
I love that. Okay, so let's dive into each of these about kind of just what you mean by each of these things.
Yep. So first, clear. When I say clear, it has to be easily and readily understood. You can't use lofty language or obtuse language when it comes to messaging. It should be very straightforward. The smartest people use the easiest words to communicate their thoughts. And that's actually a really difficult skill set.
Absolutely. With you on that one.
The second is concise. My favorite quote is by Mark Twain, or at least I believe it's Mark Twain. And he said, I was going to write you a short letter. I didn't have the time, so I wrote you a long one instead.
Yes, classic.
Classic. Every product marketer should know that one. But concise messaging means say it in the fewest amount of words possible. Your subject, the person that you're marketing to, is super busy. They will spend maybe a half a second reading one of your benefit statements. And if it takes them longer than half a second or a second to read it, they're just going to move on.
Absolutely. No, for sure.
Yep. So third, it has to be benefit driven. So if they are going to take that half second to second to read it, then it must touch on some core problem that they're trying to solve. Like it has to speak to them, like solve one of their problems.
Absolutely.
So third, if it's going to solve one of their problems, you might as well tell them how to solve their problem. So I really like this mentality of how to when writing benefit statements, because you want to like guide them through that process of how your product solves their specific problem using those benefit statements, which honestly takes us to the sequential part of it all. If you're going to have 3 statements about your product, because everybody loves the rules of 3, it might as well be sequential. So tell them what to do first. What's that first benefit that you could achieve? Which is that first step? What's that second thing that they need to do? Like, what's the benefit that you help them there? What's the final thing that they need to do? Like, what's that benefit? And then finally, if you want to make it like a little bit more memorable, use alliteration. That has, for me, like traditionally worked, but it's more of a nice to have than a mandatory thing to have in your messaging.
Yeah. So we're talking about alliteration in headlines or
Yep.
even just in, yeah. Can you recall any good alliterative headlines that you've done in the past? I'm putting you on the spot, but
Yep. Well, one of the best ones that, like, that I've seen is find, win, keep. I mean, that's not alliteration, but it's a simple way of explaining like what does our core Salesforce product do for small, medium-sized businesses. Like it helps you find new customers, win them easily, and then keep them for a lifetime.
that's
Like
right.
that type of simple messaging hierarchy is actually the best because it helps people remember. It's like, oh, if I only remember 3 things, they remember those 3 words, and they're like, oh, they associate that with your product or brand.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's like a quick hit list. I love rule of 3. I think it's one of those things it's you almost intuit, like you intuitively like things in 3. And I think it's really interesting like how it works. Like you know what the thought process is behind the rule of 3. Have you been a nerd like me and actually looked that up?
Oh man, I wish I did. What is it?
No, so this is like a long, clunky way of saying it, but it's the perfect number. Three is just enough that it actually creates a pattern, which we kind of like, a repetitive sort of pattern in our mind, but not so much that it's like hard to remember. So it just strikes that balance of like long enough, not too short, that it sticks in our mind and it's like pleasing. It's something about that kind of the pace and the pattern. And so the idea is that anything in threes is like more memorable and also pleasing for our brains. So yeah, it is like an actual thing. Like there's something, four is too much, two is not enough, right?
Yep, that explains why my parents had 3 kids. We're memorable.
That's right. It's just like the perfect kind of rounds that number perfectly. I love everything you're talking about. I think sequential is really interesting, kind of going through the benefits first and then finally. How do you make sure that your messaging is clear? How do you kind of coach people around making sure it's understandable and simple?
Yep. Well, the first is to understand, like, with your messaging, what altitude are you messaging at?
Mm,
Now, when we talk about altitude, I like to think about, are you talking about like a feature level, a product level, a solution level, or a brand level?
right.
Like each one of those are very important because when you think about your target of who you're trying to communicate with, you have to understand like who is this for? So, for example, when I do release marketing, or my team does release marketing more accurately, we're releasing the latest and greatest features that came from my past company, Salesforce. And those are very much feature level releases that are being released to our current customers,
Right.
most likely the end users. So you have the audience in mind, you understand what level it's at, so you want to communicate the benefits for somebody that would care about a new feature for the actual user. So again, it's probably just thinking about that like messaging hierarchy and like exactly on defining out who that persona is that you're talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like meeting people where they're at. And I think, yes, a lot of times you can be toned out. You cannot really think about how much do they know, right? How much do they already know about the product or not? How much do they know about the issue, the things we're talking about? And I do think a lot of times in messaging, like it goes over people's heads because the writer perhaps hasn't thought about the level of understanding or awareness that that prospect has, right? The different stages of prospect awareness, I think, is a concept that is. Do you ever use the stages of awareness?
I haven't used necessarily the stages of awareness, but I have thought like the biggest trend that like I'm kind of seeing right now is like messaging at a product versus solution level. I think that's a
Right.
huge trend that's going on.
Oh, tell me a
Um,
bit about that. Tell me more about that.
yeah, so like the messaging at a product level, like we're usually solving some kind of user's pain point,
Mhm.
or I like to refer to it as the little P pain. How much I love T pain. But at a bigger level, which I think is like the direction that we're heading now, is more solution messaging.
Right.
And in order to grab a line of business buyer's attention, is to usually solve that greater business problem, or what I like to call the big P pain.
Oh my
E-
God, I love this. The big P pan, right? Like the business one versus just the individual, right?
Exactly. And again, it's just about defining out what altitude we need to communicate at, like who's in the room, who are we trying to market to and try to sell, and like speaking to them at the appropriate altitude.
Love it. So good. Awesome. That is so good. So I love how you have this really strategic approach to how you create messaging. I think that's super cool and obviously probably really helpful for your team, which makes you think about positioning, right? Which is sort of like you need to get the strategic part done first before you launch into messaging. So tell me about positioning. Like, how do you approach it? How do you think about it in your
Mhm.
work?
Positioning is like the most fun thing, the most strategic thing that a product marketer gets to do.
This
It's
is it. This is the
amazing.
most fun. Doesn't get better than positioning, right?
Right. I mean, everybody wants to have like some type of strategy role in the company. Everybody tells me they're like, oh, I'm a big thinker. I've got lots of ideas. It's like, great. Let's start with positioning. Let's hear those big ideas. And I think the problem that we're trying to solve, like with positioning, is where in the marketplace does our product belong?
Right.
And like one of the first questions that I ask with around positioning is what is our unique space in the marketplace, which divides right into what category are we actually in?
Now, this is a tough one, Jason, because these are crowded spaces. The products are overlapping, like they could be seen as different things. Like this seems like kind of the biggest thing.
Yep. Like category definition is probably the most important for you as a product marketer, but for you as a business or an organization. Because if everybody's not aligned to what category we're actually operating and building product, marketing product, selling product, then there is a total misalignment of the entire business strategy.
Right. So how do you approach like figuring out where we fit in the marketplace? I mean, have
Yep.
you created categories before and in your past?
Yeah, and it always starts with the customer
Okay.
because you can't argue about what the customers are actually doing and doing a lot of ethnographic research about how they're actually using your products, your competitors' products, your perceived competitors' products.
Right.
And the first thing that I did when it came to category definition was literally interview 150 of our existing customers
Wow.
when I was at Salesforce. To set the stage, we were in the early stages of Community Cloud. We were trying to identify what our core use cases are for Community Cloud. And we had this assumption that we were playing in the collaboration space. Like that was our category, customer and partner collaboration. Well, we went out and after interviewing a lot of our customers, like I specifically on partner community, and the biggest piece of feedback said, no, we do not want our partners collaborating together. We do not want them in groups. We want partners accessing data and information from us. We want to push sales processes on them so that they sell and market our services.
Right.
So we're like, okay, I mean, we are a CRM. We did create some partner relationship management features. But when we went back and asked them, like, so you need partner relationship management? They're like, yes, but we're also going to purchase this other software because it was really about providing them a unique or personalized experience. Like, we have a lot of different partners and we want to personalize each experience with the right workflows, with the right content. And that was really the aha moment for both me and the product team. Like we saw that they liked the idea of a portal that we were doing. They didn't like community. They wanted the workflows, but they also cared about experiences. Well, over a course of a couple of years, like the product team and the product marketing team realized that we're not so much in the collaboration space. We wanted to get into experience platforms, but also leverage our strength as a CRM, a customer relationship management software. So what we ended up deciding that we were doing in my specific product is that we weren't powering partner collaboration or even partner relationship management. What we were doing in this era of all digital selling was powering partner experience management because we had to
Right.
manage experiences of our partners across a multitude of different online touch points, serving them the right content, serving them the right services, the right workflows so that they could sell on our behalf. So it was kind of taking an antiquated term of partner relationship management, bringing it up to partner experience management, and then leveraging what the product management team was developing, saying, look, we have a world-class CRM. We've developed a competitive experience platform. We've combined those two areas together and we were essentially managing now experiences. So we were an experience management category.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, that's so cool to hear how that really evolved talking to customers and finding out like how they're actually using it and the fact that this is not a collaboration. I mean, that's huge. What if you had gone ahead with that? It just wouldn't have resonated, right?
Exactly. And like one thing that people could fall victim to in the SaaS space is that they look at their adoption and utilization methods. They're like, oh, people are using this feature. It
Right.
must be popular. Or they must be using it exactly how I think they're using it. It's on us product marketers and even product management teams to go investigate exactly how they're using it so we can inform both our messaging and product strategy.
I love that, not to just rely on just the data alone and make your own inferences. And it's actually speak to people and get that kind of color around the usage and
Exactly.
really understand. No, that is so cool. I love that. Thank you for sharing that story because I know category creation, it's on everyone's mind and it's hard, right? How do you do it? So that's just a really great process that you shared with us. So thank you about that. So we have a ton of viewers who are product marketers up and coming at different stages in their career. And you've been around the block a few times, you've seen a few things. Do you have any advice you would like to share with product marketers who are kind of rising up in their career?
Yep. I would say product marketing could mean a lot to a lot of different organizations. There isn't a clear definition of product marketing. That's why these types of organizations, these types of podcasts even exist. They'll bring clarity to what is even offered. So what I would say is like understand the three different areas of product marketing, in my opinion. And you could in product marketing, I believe that you could either be somebody that's more oriented to the sales teams, which is go to market, somebody more oriented toward the product side, the product organization, which are more your technical product marketers, or somebody that's more oriented toward demand gen and corporate marketing, which is your market programs type PMM. And to investigate all those areas, because depending on what company you go to, some may exist, some may not exist, and then to create a North Star, like state where you want to go, like what areas most influence you. Maybe you want to do all three, and then use that North Star to kind of guide what organizations you talk to. Because at the higher end, your companies are going to get more specialized and you'll probably only do one of those functions. On the smaller company size, you might be able to do all three, but it's to really figure out what do you get the most enjoyment of, because each one of those respective areas brings a different skill set to the table.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So which is your area then, would you say?
Uh, my North Star has always been I want to be a product marketing leader. I want to eventually be a general manager or even maybe a CEO in the future. So I've always looked to have the broadest possible definition of product marketing, encompassing all three areas. And anytime that I could reach for a position that gets me to all three areas is the area that I gravitate to. And it's honestly one of the most exciting reasons why I'm at Braze is because it's an emerging company that needs to do all three extremely well and to develop a team that is able to develop and bring forth the best practices for each of those areas to drive a business. So I think for me, I would rather be the generalist driving the business than a specialist having niche focus in one area.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, thank you for kind of outlining those options because, yeah, everyone's different, come into the role for different reasons, and just kind of having that North Star and
Mhm.
clarifying this is where I want to play, it can help you move faster rather than sort of just like bumbling around in the dark. Like a lot of us do at times in our career, right? You're just sort of like kind of going from thing to thing. So that's really good advice. It has been a total blast chatting with you, Jason. I've really enjoyed having you. So thanks for being on the show.
Yep, appreciate all the time, and I hope it was helpful for all the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to everyone who is watching today. Definitely stay tuned next week for another episode of Adventures in Messaging. See you later.
Thank you. Bye.